Hi everyone, it's Casey, and today I'm here to walk you through one complete mini lesson that is included in my historical fiction reading unit for middle school. I'm going to be walking you through that daily framework and each piece that I would use to teach this mini lesson. So the mini lesson statement for today is, readers summarize a significant event that changed the entire direction of the plot. So the first thing I would do is give a teaching point. The teaching point that I've included in this lesson: some plot events keep the plot moving along in a predictable manner, while other plot events completely shake up the direction the plot was headed. Plot events that impact the main character's thinking, emotional state, or way of life often take the plot in a whole new direction. Think about a significant plot event that has impacted the main character in a way that caused him or her to take a sharp right or left turn instead of continuing to go straight. So the next piece that I do with students would be to make an anchor chart with them, or otherwise give them a reference sheet for their reader's notebook or reading binder, whatever you use. So today's reference sheet that I have is called Significant Plot Events, and it just lists out times that would be considered significant plot events. So some examples that I have listed on the reference sheet: the main character is forced to move locations. The main character's relationship with another character ends because of something beyond either character's control. A character who's close to the main character dies or is taken away. The main character has to perform an incredible act of bravery. So those are just a few examples, and there are several more listed on that reference sheet to just get students thinking about plot events that would be considered significant. The next piece would be to ask students a student connection question. So the question that I have to just get students thinking about this mini lesson and connect to it: do significant plot events tend to happen more in the beginning, middle, or end of a historical fiction book? So just something to get them thinking, and obviously for each student, their experience might be a little bit different. And then the next piece that I use in my reading mini lesson framework is oral reading fluency. I have students partner with someone in the class and look at the last 5 pages they've read in their book and select one page that they are going to read aloud to their partner. And then at the end, once each student has had a chance to read, I give a mini lesson connection question, which for this mini lesson is the action on the page you read aloud part of a calm part of the plot or part of a significant plot event? So kind of differentiating, is this part that's just moving the plot along, or is this in the middle of something very significant and action-packed? After the oral reading fluency, we move into the interactive read aloud. This is my chance to have that common text that all students can refer back to, and for me to model my thinking about this mini lesson to students along the way. So I always do a before the reading question, and so for this mini lesson, what significant plot events have happened so far in the book? So getting students to reflect back on that. And then I like teachers to pick 2 to 3 stopping points. You don't want to kill the book, but you do want to intentionally stop and talk about it since you are taking the time to read the book aloud. It's a great time to connect to that mini lesson. So I have it broken down into ideas for a teacher think aloud, a whole class share out, partner turn and talk, or a sticky note stop and jot. So I'm just going to give a few examples. So for the teacher think aloud, stop at a place that causes you to make a prediction about a significant plot event that will happen later on in the book. Explain the prediction you have and how you think this would cause the plot to change direction. For the partner turn and talk, stop at a place the main character experiences an unexpected change and ask students to turn and talk about how might this unexpected change impact what the main character does next. So after the read aloud is done, the next piece would be to model to students what you're going to be asking them to do independently today as readers. So for today, the idea that I have for this mini lesson is to have students do a part where they are summarizing a significant plot event, and then they're explaining why this plot event will change the direction of the plot. So I like to do this where I do it with like our interactive read aloud, so students are able to connect and see, okay, this is the type of thinking she's asking me to do. This is what showing proficiency looks like. So I did this with the book Fire from the Rock by Sharon Draper, and I summarized a significant plot event by talking about, if you guys are familiar with the book, when Sylvia does her interview with the Board of Education, they treat her really rude. And then I explain why I think that'll change the plot event or change the direction of the plot. And I actually cite some textual evidence about how Sylvia says after the interview, "I still feel like I've been hollowed out like a Thanksgiving turkey and stuffed with sharp knives instead of soft dressing when I got home from the interview. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't even sit still." So before the interview, Sylvia really thought and was considering being one of the students that would go to Little Rock High School and be part of that integration. And after the interview, she realizes, you know what, maybe this is not for me. Maybe I don't want to be this person that goes through this hardship that these students are going to experience. And then after I model that to students, the next piece would be what I like to call the have a go. If you're thinking of that gradual release of responsibility, it would be now releasing that to students. And so I, for this part, love students to revisit that reference sheet. So for them to actually go back and review what are significant plot events. And then I usually have a question that they can talk to a partner about so they can verbalize their thinking before they have to write down their thinking independently. So for the have a go, the question that I have, what plot events have impacted the main character's life and caused him or her to move in a direction different than he or she was heading? So we have our interactive read aloud book that students are reading, but students also have their independent book, which maybe is just an independent reading book that's in that same genre, or maybe it's like a literature circle book or a guided reading book or a book club book. So students are applying this thinking now to their book. So they're getting started by talking with a partner, getting their ideas generated. And then the last piece is the application, where students are going to have that opportunity to now get the exit ticket and go ahead and answer those questions of summarizing a significant plot event and then talking about why this plot event changed the direction that the main character was heading in. So getting a chance to write that down. Every exit ticket comes with a proficiency rubric, and it defines for this specific reading skill, what does proficiency look like for meeting proficiency, approaching minimal proficiency, and showing no evidence. So students can see that, and they also saw the modeling of what it looked like to meet proficiency. So a lot of times teachers ask me, how do you get small group instruction in? How do you have time for reading conferences? And I think the biggest thing is that you need to have some sort of a formative assessment that students are doing. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It doesn't have to be something that's going to take them an hour to do. It's something quick to see that they're able to do it. It could be something that they're talking out with a partner, thinking about. It doesn't always have to be written down. So I think having that application piece, that frees the teacher up. And so students are working on their application, and then they're also reading, which is hugely important. They need time to read. So they're doing those two pieces while that teacher maybe meets with students one-on-one for reading conferences or meets with a small group for guided reading, literature circles, or book clubs. Part of what I always include in each reading mini lesson for my units, I include questions for reading conferences or for reading strategy groups. So like for this mini lesson, I have things like, has something happened that forced the main character to move locations? Has something happened that caused the main character to end a relationship with another character? What goal does the main character achieve that causes the plot to move in a different direction? So questions that you can ask students and have ready that apply right back to that mini lesson. And the last piece, so students now are having their time to work on their exit ticket, read independently. I think it's important to take those last 2 to 3 minutes of class, come back together and have some finality to that mini lesson with a share. So I always include a share out question. What plot event did you summarize? How did this plot event change the direction of the plot? Lots of different ways you can share. They can share out as a whole class. You can have students partner up and share. You could have students whip around in a big circle and share out one thing really quickly. You could have students jot something down on a sticky note and hand it to you on the way out the door. Lots of different ways that you can do that final share out. So that is the whole mini lesson framework with that example of that mini lesson of today. If you like what you hear, definitely check out my reading units. So far, we've got the realistic fiction reading unit for middle school and the historical fiction reading unit for middle school. Each of those reading units comes with 20 mini lessons that are all different, all unique, aligned to standards. So definitely check it out.